And we're back. All right, so you've all been waiting on it. We've got a lot of messages about it. What are the negative drawbacks of motocross, specifically motocross racing? I think there are a couple. I think there's probably more positives than there are negatives, but I do want to talk about the one that stands out to me and the one that can affect you the most throughout your life, especially as a kid coming into being a young adult, an adult. And sometimes the adults don't even understand this is what they're breeding into their children. But first we're going to drop into just being an adult and what I want to talk about here. The ego, okay? Motocross is one of the biggest breeders of ego that I've ever seen in my life, mainly because I've been involved with it more than any other sport or any other competition-based, hobby or whatever you would like to call it. Sorry, I'm looking under the phone here to see what the light's doing. So what I want to talk about ego is there's one major thing that kind of starts to take over with your ego, and that's going to be being result driven or outcome oriented. Okay, there's my green light. And what happens when you become outcome oriented, and usually the problem with being outcome oriented is not necessarily for you. You're trying to prove yourself to other people and or make someone happy. You need a result to prove your worth, right? Okay? And so what happens is you do that over and over, you get addicted to that feeling, and you become less task oriented. And this is where you don't have fear, okay? So if you're task oriented, you're going to the track, for instance, with a task. And that task could be, for instance, what I would send people to the track for would be go ride 100 laps with your feet perfect. Go home, hang your hat that you accomplished that task. An ego-oriented goal or day at the track would be, were my lap times faster than little Johnny's or Johnny Sr.'s lap times consistently throughout the day? Okay, and it's hard to, shy away from that when you have the pros going to the track with lap times and things like that. But they're obviously making a living and getting paid to do that. And they also all struggle with egos. A lot of times after they retire, they realize they don't have a place to put that. So, anyways, let's draw back to what that looks like in a kid. If you have a kid that's racing, usually you breed ego into that racer by taking them racing over and over and teaching them that they need a certain result in order to be a certain person with their motorcycle. In order to be worthy or a good rider means you need to go to Loretta's, or you need to go first place at your area qualifier, or you need to win your district series, right? And when you drive that into a kid, this is why I always tell my parents, race less, train more. It's not always just so they have great technique and they stay safe. A lot of the times, it's so we don't breed big egos and we're able to keep training and listening to our coaches and listening to our parents. You see it, I see it over and over, where you get to being in race mode, the ego starts to breed, especially when you start having some results. And then all of a sudden, we're not listening to our parents. Our coaches are having a hard time getting them to stay focused, and or they're looking for whatever it is that's going to help them get better results in the immediate. What we've got to do with our kids in order to not breed a big ego is teach them that we've got to go to the track being task-oriented. Okay, when you're task-oriented, it takes away the fear because you're in the moment, you're going there to do a certain task, and you hang your hat on that task. Does that breed better results at the end of the day? I think so. Is that take away one of the biggest problems in motocross? Fear? Everyone's like, oh, this sport is a mental sport. It's 80% mental. Well, what does that mean? That means everyone is result and outcome driven. And so they're in fear of what's going to happen. When you're outcome driven, you're thinking about what place you should get or what Davey Millsaps is going to do, right? And anytime you think into the future like that, you become fearful. Okay, and then that's why you see there's a difference in racers that aren't fearful and that are. And a lot of times, those racers are more task-driven than they are result-driven. I don't want to drag this on too long, but the ego is the problem, okay? And this sport breeds ego. It's a one-man or woman sport. When you're on the track, you've got to be focused on you, okay? And a lot of times, when you know, mom's making you lunch and dad's washing your bike and changing the oil, and your only job is to go out and ride your motorcycle, you all of a sudden breed an ego in your head that everything is supposed to be handed to you and everyone's working for you. And I get it. I was the same way. I still deal with it. I'm still working on my own ego, but I understand what it is now. I understand what it means, and now I can go and, you know, put that into my everyday life and try to improve my family situation, my relationship situation, my employee situation. I get it. Okay? So that's the one thing in motocross that I see, or the main thing that I see can go south. Become more task driven, less result driven. Peace.